In the early 90s, Kriss Kross burst onto the music scene wearing their clothes backward, rocking stadiums filled with fans screaming for more. Their voices boomed across radio waves, their music videos looped endlessly on TV, and they quickly became household names. But while the world saw them as unstoppable teenage superstars, hidden troubles simmered just beneath the surface. From sudden fame to intense rivalries, mysterious rumors, and ultimately heartbreaking tragedy, this is the story of Kris Kross, the unstoppable duo that reached dazzling heights before colliding with harsh realities that no one could have predicted. Before the crowds, platinum records, and iconic fashion statements, James Christopher, Mac Daddy Kelly, and Christopher Daddy Mac Smith were just two friends growing up in Atlanta. They met in first grade, bonding over everyday kid stuff, and never imagining they'd soon become rap's youngest trailblazers. Yet fate was about to pull them into the spotlight in the most unlikely way. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Atlanta had a rising hip-hop pulse that was still taking shape. Jermaine Dupri, a teenage producer on the lookout for fresh talent, happened to be scouting one afternoon at the bustling Greenbrier Mall. There, he spotted Kelly and Smith, not rapping or dancing, but simply hanging out. According to Dupri, the two boys had a magnetic presence about them. Some swear he overheard the pair cracking jokes about wanting to stand out. Others say it was their distinct sense of style that made him stop and stare. Regardless of the rumor, one fact remains clear. Dupri sensed star power and took a leap of faith. From that moment, the duo's life changed forever. In a whirlwind, they signed with Dupri's fledgling label, So Def, and began working on a debut that would eventually send shockwaves through the music industry. There was immediate buzz around these two charismatic kids who dressed like no one else. But it wasn't just a quirky fashion sense that turned heads. It was their raw potential, the kind that hints at huge success, but also raises questions. Are they ready for what's coming? In 1992, Kris Kross catapulted from local curiosity to international sensation with their debut single, Jump. The track delivered an irresistible hook wrapped in a head-nodding beat that exploded onto the airwaves. Practically overnight, fans of all ages were busting out the backward clothes trend, while radio stations spun the single into heavy rotation. MTV followed suit, showcasing the music video non-stop until millions of viewers could rap along to every lyric. The mania around Jump seemed unstoppable. It soared to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 8 consecutive weeks, a feat that caught even seasoned industry veterans by surprise.
Still our friends, then the other half of our schoolmates are jealous, and then you have some of your schoolmates that are looking up to you saying that they want to be like you.
Their album, Totally Crossed Out, dominated the charts and went quadruple platinum. Corporate executives raced to understand how these two middle schoolers managed to hit such a sweet spot with audiences, overshadowing established acts who had spent years building a brand. Yet behind the scenes, a whirlwind schedule took its toll on Kelly and Smith. They were still just kids, celebrated worldwide, but also juggling a constant parade of interviews, photo shoots, rehearsals, and performances. Some insiders whispered about the industry machine that pushes young talents to their limits. Others believed Kris Kross was simply riding the wave of success and loving every minute of it. Fans, for their part, mostly saw the polished music, videos, the captivating stage presence, and those memorable clothes turned backward, a visual that cemented Kris Kross in pop culture history. Kris Kross didn't just own the music charts, they invaded nearly every corner of pop culture. In the early 90s, appearing on MTV was a must for any aspiring superstar, and Kris Kross turned that platform into a virtual playground. Their videos for hits like Warm It Up blasted onto top countdowns, featuring their signature baggy pants and unstoppable swagger. The group's look captured the imagination of fans everywhere, who flipped their pants backward as an instant badge of cool. But television wasn't their only domain. They made cameo appearances in Michael Jackson's video for Jam, performed with the King of Pop on his Dangerous World Tour, and popped up in videos for fellow Atlanta breakout group TLC. Even more impressively, they stood alongside rap legends like Run DMC, bridging hip-hop's old school and new wave in ways few teenage acts ever could. From talk shows to magazine spreads, it felt like nobody could get enough of these two unstoppable youngsters who seemed to have everything going for them. However, rumors began circulating that early fame could spawn friction between Kelly and Smith. Some fans whispered that producers were playing favorites, focusing more attention on one than the other, while others insisted the duo remained tight despite the rumors. The competitive environment of 90s hip-hop also stirred the pot. Other up-and-coming teenage rap groups eyed Kriss Kross's success with envy. For a time, though, it seemed like any negativity bounced right off their unstoppable brand. The hits kept coming, and the fans kept screaming. By 1993, Kriss Kross began shedding some of that kiddie image for a more aggressive, gritty sound. Their second album, Da Bomb, signaled a turning point. While critics and fans wondered if they might flame out after the monster success of their debut, Kriss Kross surprised everyone by embracing a harder-hitting style. The beats were heavier, the lyrics more direct, and their teen rivalries took shape in subtle jabs scattered throughout the tracks. Some critics slammed the duo for trying too hard to sound street, especially considering their youth and earlier polished pop rap. But plenty of fans embraced the new edge, seeing it as a natural evolution for two kids growing up in front of the world. In hip-hop, credibility often hinges on transformation. Artists rarely stay the same from one album to the next. For Kelly, and Smith stepping into a brasher persona may have felt like a rite of passage. With Jermaine Dupri still guiding the production, Da Bomb managed platinum sales, proving Kriss Kross was more than a one-hit wonder. Tracks like I'm Real took a defiant stance, and cameo appearances by rising talents, including the future star Da Brat, gave the project street cred. Yet whispers of rivalry with Da Youngstas, Illegal, and Another Bad Creation lingered, adding a competitive tension that only fueled curiosity. Even so, no external conflict could overshadow the sense that Kriss Kross, now older teenagers, were determined to assert themselves as legitimate artists, not just novelty kids in backward clothes. As the mid-90s rolled in, hip-hop experienced a dramatic shift, fueled by West Coast G-Funk and East Coast hardcore rap. Eager to keep pace, Kriss Kross introduced Young, Rich and Dangerous in 1996. The playful innocence of Jump was nowhere to be found. In its place were more mature themes and a refined approach that took aim at an older audience. By this point, Kelly and Smith were no longer pre-teens. They were young adults navigating a scene exploding with fierce competition from the likes of the Notorious B.I.G., Tupac, Nas, and others. Singles like Tonight's the Night and Live and Die for Hip Hop carried a confident tone, showcasing the duo's improved flows and willingness to experiment. Critics noticed a shift toward greater introspection, as though Kriss Kross was grappling with the pitfalls of fame, the challenge of staying relevant, and the personal transformations that come with growing up. The production still sparkled with Jermaine Dupri's touches, but industry chatter hinted that Dupri's energy might be more invested in emerging artists like Da Brat and a soon-to-be rising star named Bow Wow. While Young, Rich and Dangerous went gold and garnered a loyal following, it didn't replicate the explosive success of the debut. Behind the scenes, Kelly and Smith were gradually charting their own paths. Chris Kelly delved deeper into producing and engineering, founding his own imprint, C Connection Records. Chris Smith explored business opportunities by establishing Life Entertainment Inc. They seemed poised to remain in the industry one way or another, but rumors started swirling about Kelly's private struggles. Some claimed he was wrestling with personal demons, or was showing signs of being overwhelmed by stress. Still, public appearances revealed a polished front. Kriss Kross was forging ahead, no matter the whispers. Despite relatively smooth public relations, talk of Chris Kelly's possible substance struggles flickered in the background. Certain friends admitted they had seen Kelly withdraw from social situations or appear oddly distant. A handful of music. Insiders said they suspected behind-the-scenes partying had gotten out of hand. Yet it was easy for fans to overlook these rumors, since no major scandal broke in the media at the time. Some point to the intense schedule and the psychological weight of being a pop culture icon during one's adolescence as critical factors. Others argue the transition from unstoppable child star to a more grounded adult artist can be emotionally jarring. By the late 90s, Kriss Kross was no longer the chart-topping phenomenon it had once been, and the music landscape had changed drastically. Kelly and Smith still had name recognition, but the pressures of sustaining a career amid personal challenges can push anyone to the edge. Even so, nobody in the public sphere anticipated a worst-case scenario. Those who grew up on Kriss Kross maintained a nostalgic fondness, especially as 90s retro style periodically came back into fashion. Fans clung to hope for a major comeback, perhaps another collaboration with Jermaine Dupri, or a high-profile guest appearance that would remind the world why they once dominated the charts. Some thought the door was closing on that era, while others believed a revival was just around the corner. In February 2013, So So Def celebrated its 20th anniversary with a concert at Atlanta's Fox Theater. Fans buzzed at the rumor that Kriss Kross might reunite for a special performance. When Chris Kelly and Chris Smith finally took the stage, it felt like stepping back into 1992, a full-circle moment for two performers who had started their journey as kids in the same city. The duo, now grown men, launched into a high-energy set that included, of course, Jump. It was a nostalgic night not just for fans, but also for Jermaine Dupri, who had discovered them decades earlier. Many in attendance described the performance as electric, a testament to the duo's enduring chemistry. Interviews and social media posts afterward showed Kelly and Smith in good spirits, grateful to celebrate the label that put them on the map. If there were any lasting tensions, they didn't show on stage. Instead, fans left the venue feeling that perhaps this reunion might spark new music, or at least remind the world that Kriss Kross still had plenty to offer. Little did anyone know this triumphant moment would be Kriss Kross's last live performance together. Looking back, the event took on a tragically poignant significance, but at the time, it simply felt like a joyous homecoming, an overdue acknowledgement of their legacy. Just a couple of months later, in May 2013, news broke that no one wanted to believe. Chris Kelly had been found unresponsive in his Atlanta home, and emergency services were unable to save him. He was only 34. An autopsy later revealed that he had OD'd, a fact that confirmed the rumors about his struggles with substances. The details were heartbreaking. A lethal combination of drugs that abruptly ended a life brimming with talent and unfulfilled possibilities. The hip-hop community reeled in shock. Condolences and tributes poured in from every corner. Jermaine Dupri spoke openly about losing Kelly, whom he considered akin to a son. Chris Smith described feeling as though he had lost a brother and a lifelong friend, reflecting on the many years they'd spent side by side, both before the fame and during the height of their global stardom. Fans took to social media to share stories about blasting Jump at middle school dances or practicing Kriss Kross routines with friends in front of the TV. Others lamented the darker side of early stardom, questioning whether the industry machinery that catapults children into the spotlight leaves them ill-equipped to handle the fallout. Overnight, Kriss Kross went from a nostalgic throwback act to a stark reminder of how fleeting life and success can be. Whenever a tragedy befalls an artist, especially one who experienced epic fame early in life, speculation naturally runs rampant. In the aftermath of Chris Kelly's passing, chatter emerged about whether the demands of youth stardom had led him into destructive habits. Some claimed he had been quietly struggling for years, with short periods of sobriety overshadowed by relapses. Others suggested that unresolved emotional wounds, perhaps from the sudden shift to adulthood after being idolized as a child, had taken their toll. Conspiracy theories even circulated, though they rarely held up under scrutiny. The official toxicology findings were clear. He OD'd on a dangerous combination of substances. Friends and family acknowledged Kelly's struggle, urging people to recognize the pitfalls that can ensnare anyone, even those who seem to have everything. Meanwhile, Chris Smith handled his grief out of the public eye, focusing on One Life Entertainment and paying quiet tribute to his longtime friend. While fans hoped for further clarity or more extensive public statements, Smith largely chose to remember Kelly privately, a choice that some respected and others questioned. No matter the rumors, the heartbreak was universal. A once larger-than-life figure was gone, leaving countless unanswered questions about what might have been. Kriss Kross's legacy endures as a vivid snapshot of the early 90s, a time when hip-hop was opening its arms to younger audiences and forging new ground in fashion, sound, and attitude. Their success story was so meteoric that even decades later, the phrase, "it makes me wanna jump," can trigger immediate nostalgia for fans who remember seeing those baggy jeans flipped backward for the first time. That sense of pure fun and youthful energy still resonates, yet their story is also woven with cautionary threads. The jump from anonymity to celebrity can be exhilarating, especially in childhood, but it can also sow the seeds of confusion, pressure, and vulnerability. Kelly's passing illuminated these risks, particularly in an industry often more focused on the next hit than on the well-being of artists. On a broader scale, Kriss Kross opened doors for future teenage acts, showing record executives that a young rap group could command serious commercial and cultural clout. Artists like Lil Bow Wow, later Bow Wow, and others directly benefited from that path. In interviews, Bow Wow himself has credited the early success of Kriss Kross as a key factor in Jermaine Dupri's decision to sign him. Without Kelly and Smith blazing that trail, the mainstream might not have been as receptive to another preteen rap sensation. For fans, the memories remain bittersweet. They'll always have the iconic anthems and videos capturing Kelly and Smith bounding around in an explosion of adolescent swagger, but they'll also recall the harsh reminder of how swiftly life can change. One moment, Kriss Kross is reuniting on stage to the delight of thousands, and the next, tragedy strikes, robbing the world of a performer whose energy once electrified entire arenas. It's impossible to discuss Kriss Kross without touching on their relationship with Jermaine Dupri. While some fans romanticize the story of two kids discovered in a mall by a visionary producer, industry insiders suggest the dynamic was more complex. Dupri's role was undoubtedly pivotal. He wrote, produced, and guided them through every phase of early fame. However, as he signed other artists, speculation grew that Kriss Kross felt overshadowed or pressured to keep reinventing themselves to maintain Dupri's interest. Then there were the rumored tensions with other young rap groups jockeying for position in the 90s. Illegal and the Youngsters, for instance, sometimes exchanged jabs in lyrics, fueling a sense that Kriss Kross had rivals actively trying to knock them off their pedestal. Many of these rivalries faded over time, overshadowed by the duo's popularity. Yet the constant competitive environment may have added stress, especially for two teenagers thrust into the big leagues without much emotional insulation. Still, Kelly and Smith always presented a united front. Whether they were fielding interview, questions about their personal lives, or performing for a screaming audience, they rarely let glimpses of internal tension show. Fans who saw them backstage often remarked on their genuine camaraderie, a bond forged in childhood that fame could not easily break. Even as adults, there were no high-profile "Kriss Kross is breaking up" announcements. They simply evolved, exploring separate business ventures while leaving the door open for special reunions. Sadly, that door would close all too soon. No conversation about Kriss Kross can happen without acknowledging Atlanta's major role in shaping their identity. During the early 90s, Atlanta was quickly morphing into a powerhouse for music, especially for hip-hop and R&B. So Defcy, emergence paralleled the rise of Layface Records, which launched stars like TLC, Usher, and Toni Braxton. The city's culture of musical innovation created an environment where a teenage rap duo wearing clothes backward could become a national obsession. Kriss Kross benefited from the city's strong network of studios, producers, and local radio, stations hungry for fresh talent. They also contributed to Atlanta's reputation as a place where unpredictability thrived, where rap could be playful, irreverent, and yet fiercely chart-topping. With Jermaine Dupri orchestrating beats that blended East Coast rap grit with Southern bounce, Kriss Kross harnessed Atlanta's creative momentum. They became ambassadors of a scene that, within a few years, would dominate hip-hop on multiple levels. Today, Atlanta stands as a global hub for rap and trap music, producing countless big names. Though many contemporary artists may not remember Kriss Kross's earliest hits firsthand, they still move in the wake of what Kelly and Smith helped establish. Atlanta's tradition of discovering and nurturing young talent remains robust, partly due to the blueprint that Kriss Kross and Jermaine Dupri laid down decades ago. When Jump took over the charts, Some skeptics labeled Kriss Kross a novelty, act. They questioned how legitimate it was for kids to rap about teenage concerns, innocent crushes or schoolyard dramas, while wearing cartoonishly oversized clothing. Detractors argued that behind the marketing gimmick lurked an industry, seeking to exploit the youth factor for maximum profit. These criticisms followed Kriss Kross throughout their career, even as they aged into more mature themes. Meanwhile, the group faced another challenge that many child stars encounter: living through awkward teenage phases under the glaring eye of the press. Everything from their changing voices to personal style choices got scrutinized. Kelly and Smith walked a tightrope between meeting fans' expectations of their cool factor and simply being themselves. Though they rarely complained publicly, the weight of constant scrutiny can chip away at a performer's sense of identity. Some insiders suggest the friction between public perception and private reality only grew more intense in Kelly's life. After mainstream fame waned, being recognized everywhere, yet not having the same superstar traction, can be disheartening. The swirl of these controversies and the relentless commentary on their brand took a psychological toll that few can truly understand. Yet for all this, they managed to leave a catalogue of music that still resonates, even overshadowing much of the chatter. In the wake of Chris Kelly's passing, fans organised online vigils and memory threads, sharing stories of how Kriss Kross shaped their childhood or inspired them to dance, dress differently, or even pursue music. Social media lit up with reminders of the group's iconic performances, especially that last So-So Def concert where they briefly recaptured the magic of their glory days. Hip-hop publications ran features revisiting the group's discography, analyzing their swift rise, and pondering the complexities of early stardom. Chris Smith kept a lower profile, stepping out publicly only to release a heartfelt statement about losing his best friend since first grade. Jermaine Dupri posted emotional tributes reflecting on how Kelly was like family to him. Older fans who once wore baggy jeans backward tweeted about how the news felt like losing a piece of their youth. Younger music enthusiasts discovered Kriss Kross for the first time through nostalgic articles and tribute playlists, sometimes marveling at how groundbreaking it was for such young kids to dominate the charts in the early 90s. While many tributes have come and gone, the impression Kriss Kross left on the culture remains. Every so often, you'll see a social media post pointing out their massive influence on what it meant to be a kid rapper, or referencing how Jump can still spark a room into action. The fleeting nature of stardom and the sobering reality of personal challenges combine to paint a portrait that's both exhilarating and tragic, a testament to hip-hop history's diverse and often bittersweet tapestry. Could Chris Kelly's fate have changed with more robust support systems or mental health awareness? Did the industry, with its relentless chase for hits, inadvertently contribute to his struggles? Fans continue to debate these questions. Some argue that a slower path to fame might have allowed Kriss Kross to mature more naturally and handle pitfalls better. Others counter that the duo's meteoric success was precisely what made them legends, for better or worse. No single factor can explain how such a bright light dimmed so soon. The truth, as always, is layered. Early fame can offer extraordinary opportunities, travel, wealth, creative expression, but it can also leave young stars vulnerable. Chris Kelly's story is not an isolated incident. The annals of entertainment are filled with child phenoms who soared high only to grapple with the costs. Kriss Kross merely serves as a high-profile example, etched into the collective memory of a generation that cheered them on from living rooms, school dances, and car radios across the globe. Kriss Kross is more than a nostalgic footnote. Yes, they unleashed Jump, a mega hit that still commands the dance floor. Yes, they donned backward clothes, creating a fashion phenomenon that left an indelible mark on pop culture. Yet the real legacy lies in the deeper story. A portrait of, two Atlanta kids whose meteoric rise underlined both the brilliance and the perils of child stardom. Their successes opened doors for younger voices in hip-hop, while their struggles highlight the immense pressure that can come with early acclaim. Even after decades, Kriss Kross remains a benchmark for what's possible when raw talent meets the right opportunity. They also serve as a cautionary tale about the unseen challenges lurking behind the bright lights. The heartbreak of Chris Kelly's passing underscores how vital it is to address the emotional well-being of artists, especially those thrust into the limelight at a tender age. In reflecting on their story, we are reminded that fame often comes with heavy burdens. Burdens that can be tough to spot behind the glitz and glamour. Ultimately, the music lives on, a powerful echo of a time when two boys from Atlanta made the entire world jump. For Chris Smith, life continues, layered with the memories of what he and Kelly accomplished, and the pain of losing someone so close. For fans, there is gratitude for the soundtrack of countless childhoods and teenage escapades. And for hip-hop historians, Kriss Kross stands as an unmistakable milestone, one that invites both celebration and introspection. So ask yourself, how do we balance the thrill of sudden success against the inherent risks it brings? Kriss Kross's Helm journey offers no easy answers, but it reminds us that behind every high-voltage performance is a human story that isn't always captured by the cameras. They made the world jump, but at what cost? The conversation continues, and their music endures, echoing across decades, reminding us of just how fine the line can be between triumph and tragedy. May their story inspire us to treasure the best parts of success, while never forgetting the human complexities behind the hits. Their place in hip-hop history is forever secured, and their tale remains both a celebration of youthful spirit and a sobering reflection on the fragility of life. Once the stage lights fade,